A 10,000-year-old skeleton has skin that was dark to black and blue eyes. Researchers were able to sequence his genome for the first time to establish aspects of his appearance.
The face of Cheddar Man finally revealed. By extracting his DNA and scanning his skull, experts say they've created him in unprecedented detail. And he looks very different from what they were expecting.
The hair, the eyes, the face, that combination of blue eyes and dark skin, really very striking, something we wouldn't have imagined. And to also get from the DNA, details of his biology, the fact that he couldn't digest milk as an adult. That's something that came really with the advent of farming, and 10,000 years ago people in Britain didn't have that.
Look how he's changed. This is what scientists used to think he looked like, a reconstruction from 20 years ago when DNA analysis was nowhere near as developed.
That's right, the first resident Britons were black, with blue eyes and wavy hair. Researchers had an inkling that our ancestors were darker skinned than we were, but they had no idea that some of them could be this dark. And for those of us who identify as being white British, it's now reasonable to ask, well, what does that actually mean, given at least 10% of our ancestry is shared with this group of people? Dr. Brace and colleagues at the Natural History Museum in London, as they used the latest DNA techniques to obtain a sample from the bone around the inner ear of Cheddar Man's skull. They managed to extract nearly his entire genetic code and all the details that contains, like skin and eye colour.
It was a surprise just how dark the pigmentation is for Cheddar Man. This was actually incredibly dark-skinned, so it's really interesting for us as scientists to sort of be pinpointing when these kind of things happened. But what we've actually seen is that these darker pigmentations were actually surviving in these colder climes for a lot longer than we had anticipated, probably to do with diet.
Cheddar Man's ancestors left Africa about 40,000 years ago. At this time, much of northern Europe, including Britain, was being covered in ice. Around 10,000 years ago, the ice retreated, but what we now call Britain was connected to the continent by a land bridge called Doggerland. It was across that Cheddar Man's ancestors colonised Britain. There's been people here ever since.